All right. Want to introduce to you guys this week, my man Rare Vandal, man. Holy shit, man. It's been a minute since I talked to you. Uh,
Yeah.
I believe you're the first person I remember doing music like that in the NFT space. It might have been you and Connie, and I actually got the chance to talk to Connie last week, which was real cool. But there was a certain time in the game when it was just you and Connie really doing anything with music. Honestly, prior to music NFTs. Uh, so pleasure talking to you again.
Thanks, Franky.
How's things?
Yeah. It's good, man. Chilling here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Just got in a couple weeks ago, and we're doing a live event for our Soundsplash, DAO Records Soundsplash series happening. First live event in on location here in KL on the 8th. So that's going to be featuring my audio NFT drop alongside DJ Lethal Skills. So things are happening, man. Just
Up,
you know,
man.
slowly doing our thing.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. And so this podcast I'm doing here is kind of going through the experience of the early adopters NFT projects, or in your case, really like your own project, DAO Records, and kind of like where you started, and then kind of where you're going. So I want to get to where you started, because in my experience, you were always here. So I have no real concept of how this all started for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So where were you, like, in the beginning of all this? Like when it comes to, like, in the beginning of the whole NFT thing, like your first experience with NFTs, like what was that like?
Yes. So I stumbled across this thing called CryptoKitty back in like late 2017. And I was like, what the hell is this digital cat? Come on, man. Like, what is this? I was like, this is a joke. Like, I was just having a laugh, right?
Yeah.
And then it hit me like when I looked at it and I figured out what an NFT was. I was like, holy shit, this is genius. Like, I was like, whoa, this is gonna like change everything. And then NFT like that, like I grabbed a couple cats and I bred a few, and then I moved on to something else like after that. Because there wasn't really anything like that on my radar that was happening with anything beyond CryptoKitties for NFTs.
Right.
So it wasn't really until I started getting into DAOs at the end of 2019. I think it was around October, November. My friend Jason Chu from KL here, he went to DevCon in Osaka, and when he came back, he did a workshop on DAOs. And then it like everything kind of clicked together again, and I was looking for different ways to kind of do the music thing within the blockchain space. And I had already like been working on an independent record label. We have digital distribution deal with Believe Digital. So I was thinking like, okay, here we are. We can use this DAO as a way to kind of organize the community, and then raise funds and distribute funds, and then we can kind of use these blockchain music streaming platforms. Like at the time, it was like Music Coin and Tune, and Emanate was just emerging in parallel with the digital distributors. So that was kind of the origin story of DAO Records. And then not too long after I like dove into the DAO stuff, I started doing some workshops. We did this thing called the DAO of Wu, which was like mixing like the philosophy of Wu-Tang Clan and the DAO together, and like, come together in numbers, and then launching it independently afterwards, and just trying to like create some awareness about DAOs amongst the creative community. And it was it was really hard for a lot of people to grasp the concepts, right?
Yeah, I mean, onboarding is one of our hardest things to do in in the whole of the industry, So I mean, you're going to run into, especially when you're talking about people who are they're used to a traditional way of thinking, or a traditional way of kind of going about things, And I'd imagine that's got to be like one of your hardest things to deal with as far as the music stuff, because the music stuff is kind of just emerging now,
Yeah, I guess I've been onboarding ever since I got into crypto, just because I felt like it was something people needed to at least explore, or get some tokens, whatever, Bitcoin, Ethereum's, and so. Yeah, and at the time, like being out here in Malaysia, nobody really used Twitter anymore, so I wasn't really on Twitter until like right at the end of 2019.
Yeah.
When I was just getting everything set up for DAO Records. I created a Twitter account, and and then I started using Twitter a bit more, and that's when I found this piece from Robness. It was this like pyramids with like a animated GIF kind of thing, and I was just like, okay, this is interesting. And then I looked at it, and I was like, NFT, and I was like, what? The artists are doing NFTs now? And I was like, okay, this is it. And just like that, I started to pivot away from doing the digital distribution type of thing with like traditional platforms, and well, I still kind of did for at the beginning phase, but I kind of dove right in, and at the time it was like there was Super Rare, Rareable had just launched. I think Mint Base as well was there, and I think Known Origin was just on the verge. This is kind of just like when there were only a few platforms, obviously OpenSea, but they hadn't really integrated much in terms of creating NFTs themselves. Yeah. So the first one that attracted me, I think, was Rareable, because at the time I was trying to figure out how do we include music with these NFTs. I was like, I see the visuals, and then I had found this project called Unlockable, and they were like allowing people to unlock content via the NFT. Mm-hmm. And I was just kind of figuring out, okay, how's this going to work? And then Rareable suddenly launched their Unlockable NFT. So we used that as our first NFT in February 2020. And that was, I guess that was the beginning, where it all started.
So as far as audio NFTs, I know you like to call them audio NFTs much more than music. And we can get into that in a second. I heard you talking about that on the Spaces. I thought that was a pretty interesting conversation. I'm not a huge fan of dropping in the Spaces. I only dropped in there because I knew you were going to be talking. But when it comes to audio NFTs, those are really just emerging as far as like the audio being the NFT that you're looking for. Do you see any platform like really pulling away with that, or do you see all the platforms going to having a version of that?
Yeah, so it's really like, from my perspective and how I'm seeing everything kind of evolve is, crypto art was such a huge influence on both the platforms and the people creating NFTs. Right. And I think that a lot of us doing music kind of evolved our process around the similar, like a similar process to the way that crypto art was being done. So it was just kind of using that process as opposed to developing a new process specifically just for music. Mm-hmm. And I think like talking about onboarding and talking about having conversations with artists, like everybody's asking me, oh, how many should I do, how much should I charge for each one, and this is kind of like the crypto art mentality. Whereas like if you're an artist, you put up a piece, you have that piece, either it's a one-on-one or a couple of editions, and then you set the price. But with music, it's a bit more difficult to find that price discovery because of the way the music market traditionally works, where it's not necessarily treated the same way as like visual art or painting or sculptures or all that, right? It's more sort of a mass quantity distribution, CDs, vinyl, whatever, right? Like you have these physical units and they all relatively have the same price, or if you buy an MP3 from iTunes, that it's going to be like 99 cents or 79 cents or whatever it is now, it's like kind of that standardized price. So getting to like trying to find even, price around music.
Not to cut you off, Vandal, but even today when we're talking about, we have streaming. So, like the people kind of used to ingesting it that way now too. So they're almost used to kind of paying a subscription price for it rather than, even buying your specific music,
Yeah.
So do you think we're going to end up kind of going that way? Is that going to be a feature?
I hope not.
I just,
I hope, no, I hope we don't kind of carry out over the streaming, that model. Mm-hmm. I think it's happening already. Like, I think it's only natural for a lot of platforms to kind of just emulate what is already existing in Web 2. And streaming is one of those things. And, I don't think streaming will necessarily die out. But what I hope is that people rediscover the value of music through collecting again. And this is going back to kind of how we would collect music in the first place, like before streaming, before digital, it was buy the CD, buy the tape, buy the vinyl, collect that, put it in your collection,
Mhm.
and then you keep it. You're not really like buying it to flip it on a secondary market, right? You're buying it because you want to support the artist, you like the music, you're picking it up, you open it, it's tangible, you got it in your hands, right? And I think that NFTs offer us that opportunity again with music, is to kind of bring back the idea of collections and collecting.
Now, with that being said, we would need the player. Like right now, it's like we have the CD, but no player. You know, not to say you
Yeah.
can't listen to the music. It could be an MP3 audio, whatever. But I'm kind of talking about in the NFT form. You would want to then have some sort of player. Let's call it a boombox, for lack of better terms. That would be kind of holding the contract address in order to call upon that, say, MP3 or whatever's on the blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
to play. So with that not being available, do you know of anybody working on something like that, or is that the way we're gonna go? I kind of
Yeah.
had this idea a while back, and I obviously I can have a million ideas and don't I don't have the means to go do that,
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah, no, this was something that I've been thinking about for a while, like when we first started doing all these NFTs,
mhm.
and currently it's kind of like OpenSea is the spot where you go to play play your NFTs, right, in a way, right?
Open season
A
spot for
few
everything.
yeah, a few people have kind of tried to put together sort of playlists and these sort of things around audio NFTs specifically.
Mhm.
There are a couple of projects that are just kind of pulling in that. I know Audius most recently, allows you to kind of curate your collection of audio NFTs, specifically on Ethereum. For those who only have their NFTs there. I mean, we're working also on some of the other L1s, specifically on Near, but this is something in our roadmap for DAO Records, is what we're going to be working on next. Coming out of our alpha, we're looking at creating sort of a jukebox kind of thing, a boombox,
Mhm.
where people can deposit their NFTs in it, and they get used for streaming. But it's challenging because you have to kind of work in this sort of play to earn model alongside of a token. And I think that the idea is that we incentivize both the listener, the holder, and the artist, and those on smart contract, right? And then that way we have some sort of mechanism where people can enjoy the music, they can earn while they listen, maybe not all the time or forever or however many plays. I don't know. Things we need to figure out around that, but it's definitely on the list.
Right.
It's just, I think the biggest challenge is there is still not a massive catalog of
Mhm.
NFTs,
Mhm.
and one of the problems that we're trying to solve at DAO Records is how artists and labels can release their back catalog. And I think that this is something that people haven't really done aside from streaming. Back in the day, you could have your whole catalog on CDs. You have a physical item, and people can go and buy the whole collection kind of thing that way, each individual one.
I had a thought
Streaming,
about
it's
that
just it's
recently. I mean, not to say don't go back and but it's like if audio NFTs, if we're gonna be doing music that way, I mean, should you have to go back and redo your whole back catalog, or should you just be moving forward and saying, all right, this is my work that's on NFTs now?
Well, that's what I mean. It's like releasing your back catalog as NFTs. So it's kind of like what all the streaming or all the record labels did when they got onto the streaming platforms. They had to re-up all of all the catalog, right, and then put it up on the streaming. So it, like, I guess, working sort of like in a contrarian mindset to what's already going on in the NFT space, based on those two questions that I got asked most of the time, is how many and how much.
Mm-hmm.
We decided to kind of build a standardization model. And, this is not for everybody. I think that the beauty of NFTs is that you want to do a one-on-one, you go to a spot where it's for a one-on-one, right? You want to do editions, you can do that. Like the choice is yours really as an artist to figure out what exactly you want to do with your material. But I think that we felt that it's really important to kind of create this standardization because, it answers a lot of those questions. And it also allows people to kind of know, like, okay, this is how much the NFT is. Maybe, there's not a whole lot of utility around NFTs right now. So, if you're paying a couple $100 for an NFT, you really know what you're getting out of it. I don't know, like, there's a lot of skepticism around that. And I think that is preventing the sort of the mass market or like the general public who would be collectors of music to kind of get in and enter the space.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like, with especially audio NFTs, they have the real opportunity to not be hyper overvalued, through speculation. It's like, maybe obviously you got some of the first ones are going to, if it does well, you could imagine that the first ones are going to probably be historic in some sort of way. Mm-hmm. But, I would hope you don't see audio NFTs because you want people to be able to listen to the music. So you wouldn't want them to be paying astronomical prices, for the music unless they can then distribute it, which, I mean, goes down another whole avenue, almost like that Ice-T album. Mm-hmm. You remember that back in the day? Put out the game is to be sold, not to be told.
Yeah.
Right? Or something like that. And that same concept. If you could make it that way, like, all right, now you own the NFT, you have some sort of distribution rights, and you can go ahead. Then maybe the price can go that way. But if you're gonna be distributing it yourself to whoever you want to distribute to, and whoever can play it, whatever, you got to imagine it's got to be something a little cheaper, because the average person is probably gonna want to have lots of them, not one or two. That wouldn't benefit anybody, in my opinion. Like, if you had, just a couple people collecting them because you or not even that. If I'm a user, I'm a collector, I can only afford a couple because they're costing this crazy amount of money.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest challenge. I mean, there's there's the allure of the big bucks when you come into NFT space, and as much as that's beneficial to artists in finding their worth and getting paid properly for their art, it's also it's also bringing people in for the wrong reasons. Right. It's thinking like, all right, I'm going to make all this money on my NFT, and they come in and then nobody buys their NFT, and they're like, why isn't anybody buying my NFT? And it's like, there's more to it than just that. There's community, and the community is a huge part of of this space, right? And there's kind of like rebuilding your brand all over again, because the average person is not in there. Your average fan is not in there to buy your NFT. You're actually your target market now is like crypto people and blockchain people. And how did they get in? It's all based on the finance and the incentives and the rewards. So of course they're looking at like how they can, make gains off of your NFT by flipping it and like driving up the price and wash trading or whatever, like some platforms that people like to do to elevate their floor price or whatever. But so it's hard, man, like in the current atmosphere.
The thought I'm having actually is we talked about, and I think me and you might have talked about this one time, about going back to being able to have that insert, the insert for your CD, the thing that came out of, if you go all the way back to records, and it's like sometimes it'd be like a whole thing that came out of the record.
Posters coming.
Yeah, exactly. And there's like art pieces there. So if we could get maybe to that level where, and I don't know, I haven't done one, so I don't know how much space you're taking or how much space you have to work with. But if you could make it to that level, like, okay, this is a special edition because it would have special artwork attached to it, maybe some special information in there that's not in the other ones, and stuff like that. Maybe we can go back to that collectability of the music itself, like the actual, like the tangible piece, like a CD, like a record, but in a digital form. There's another thing I was thinking was, what if you could have like a 3D item attached to it? So so you could say, and this doesn't necessarily have to be within the actual NFT because it can be called upon, let's say in a virtual world. And then you have your album art. Your thing looks like a record. It looks like a tape, a CD, whatever you want it to look like, and it's being represented that way.
Yeah.
So these are the things that I think that could then make it cool in that way, and something you would want as opposed to, oh, I just stream this music, but you have that NFT. It's representable in some sort of virtual world, and you can see the item that's attached to it in some sort of way, whether it's attached to the contract, the dress, or whatever.
Yeah, one of the things that like I've been working with Mintbase for a while, and when they were on Ethereum, and then when they moved to Near, is kind of what brought me into Near and exploring more of that ecosystem. And what they've done is they've developed like each artist or whoever has a store or their own smart contract, right? They have their own gallery. And then their NFTs can be displayed in like a virtual gallery where you can walk in and go and look at it. And even as with 3XRs, is the project that they've been developing, they also have the ability for people to just randomly pick any sort of NFT that's out there, create a gallery, and then turn that gallery into an NFT. And then they can even sell that gallery as like its own sort of NFT space. And there's a lot of really interesting things to play around with. And I think that you're right, like, adding these extra value points onto together with an NFT, coupling it in. And, sometimes those things don't even need to be added in from the beginning.
That's exactly
I like the idea of airdrops,
later,
right?
Yeah. Yep.
If you're holding an NFT, then boo, all of a sudden you get this thing. It's like, these are like the cool things about holding NFTs, is that they actually kind of become like a membership card, or, it's like, I think you don't forget,
what I try to explain to people, especially when we're talking about the onboarding process and like new people, I'm like, you got to remember that this NFT you buy, the picture or art piece or whatever you're talking about, it's got a number attached to it. I just call it a number to the layman, but we're talking about the contract address. So the contract address is going to be something you can call on in code from another platform. So let's say, for the layman, let's say Spotify were to adopt NFTs, they would be able to just call on the contract addresses and then represent them in their own fashion, however they want to, on their platform. So I think that over time that concept can evolve, and like we were talking about, you were just saying that you have a gallery. I'm picturing kind of like a 3D virtual world, even if it's its own, not necessarily one of the given metaverses, but let's say there was like a little 3D space, maybe not huge, but it looks like a set of turntables or a boombox or whatever your form of music nostalgia is, and and you can then see the album art. You can play the thing, and and you can flip through the album art, and kind of like it gives you that.
Just connect your wallet when you're in there, and then it reads all your NFTs, and then you can just cycle through things like with your playlist. Yep. And maybe every day there's some rewards that pop up inside that you can collect, or other kind of things, other content that you can access exclusively by holding.
You could have kind of DJ in that way too. You could have then DJs going through, and as things get faster, I bet you could even connect your DJ controller to that, and then DJ right off of that. Now I think that would be a time into the future, because I just thinking about the latency issues, like, man, because I DJ, and like that wouldn't be happening anytime soon, but it's a thought,
Yeah, definitely. Or maybe there's a way that you can save your collection offline, and then those MP3 files get stored, and then you can easily spin them, and then do mixes or whatever.
That would probably work better.
So they're not like streaming it off of IPFS super slow, or like, are we? I mean, I think it'll get there later in next couple of years, five
That's what
years.
I'm saying.
So
I think
faster. But
look at everything over the years. It's gone it's gone from really slow to fast. I think that even if you think about like when we were first starting the internet, these kind of calls were probably like so far from the realm of reality that you're in Malaysia, I'm in America, and we're just, let me pop on the conversation. Let's go video and we can talk about everything, and you can go a step further and let me show you my screen over here and all this other stuff. So I think that, when you looked at in the beginning days, when you like before YouTube, there was like video quality and speed was unbelievably bad and slow. And you couldn't see it a day when we were just streaming things back and forth and streaming on your phone. I remember a time where even when streaming existed, it existed on your phone. It would blow your battery up. You'd have like no chance. You'd stream for like a half an hour, like this thing's burning hot, and like, it's gonna blow up pretty soon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I remember when I uploaded my music videos onto YouTube. I put in like the lowest res possible, so people anywhere in the world on like whatever they were using to dial up or could watch them without it buffering too much. And then now I look back and I'm like, shit, I should have put up some higher quality versions, like 420p, right?
The time, that's just sign of the times, though, and then how. Yeah. I mean, really think about how early you were to YouTube at that point, So how did you? Because I know you're not originally from Malaysia. How did you? Because almost every time I talk to you, you're out there. So how did that become a thing? How did it go from originally from Canada? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been traveling like pretty much throughout the majority of my life as a kid with my mom on my own since I was 18. I had kind of like had a couple of experiences traveling in Southeast Asia that kind of attracted me to this part of the world, and I think I was in Mauritius and Madagascar. And I decided to fly back through Malaysia. And at the time I was doing a music research project and like collaborating and working with different artists and organizing events and stuff in Mauritius and Madagascar. And I continued to do the same thing when I got to Malaysia. This was 1999, beginning of 99. Yeah. And so I just connected with the hip hop community here, started doing stuff, got invited back to do a show. They flew me out, me and my graffiti artist brother, and then we came and we did this show, and I got paid more than I got paid in Toronto. So I was like, all right, this is where it's at. All right, So I kept coming back, and on my first album, I wrote a song about, because like a lot of my music is influenced about the things that I do. Now mostly NFTs and crypto, and before was more about traveling and stuff. So I wrote a song about KL, and it went #1 in Malaysia. And after that, like 2004, 2005, and then 2007, I moved out here. But pandemic happened. I went back to Canada in the middle of 2020, spent a year there, went to Portugal, spent 8 months in Lisbon. I just got to Malaysia from Tokyo. It was like a month and a half, 2 months in Tokyo. Actually, it looks like I'm going to be based out in Tokyo. Is probably where I'm going to be at for this foreseeable future. But currently I'm here in Malaysia. Catching up and going back into my storage locker that I haven't seen in 2 years. So
now, do you work with artists out there at all?
Yeah. So that's kind of where like our first DAO Records NFT featured a Malaysian artist. Because we used to do this event called Think You Got Skills, which is like a hip hop battle series. So we had like beat battles, DJ battles, MC battles, graffiti and dance and production and stuff, right? So the winner of the beat battle and the rap battle, they kind of combined, and it was the end of 2019, beginning of 2020 when we finished recording the track. And then I thought, okay, what better way than to like drop our first DAO Records NFT using this track, Got Skills, and so yeah, that kind of started it, and work with a lot of artists based out in this region as well. Yeah,
that's great, definitely. Now, as far as performances going forward in let's say the metaverse, well, two things. What does it look like for you going forward, and how do you think it actually looks like for everybody, and like taking on the newer, like I just went to the Jim Jones little area he put up in Decentraland. He put a little theater in there. So I'm seeing that people are kind of taking to it. What do you think performances look like? Is it outright video on the wall, or do you think we go to like avatars doing performances? What do you think about all that?
That's a good question. I think these types of spaces lend well to videos on the wall. Personally, I I'm not a huge fan of an avatar performance, to be honest. I love the idea of being able to bridge real world and metaverse together. And one of the things that we've been exploring is, broadcasting from the venue into crypto voxels live, and then projecting the crypto voxels into the venue.
That's actually
so that you can kind of see both.
Yep.
You create this mirror world, right? And I think that I think allows for interaction with people in the virtual space as well as people in the physical space, who then can see themselves, like if they get in front of the camera or whatever, they can see themselves on the screen, So,
Yep.
and I found like we did an event in Lisbon, a part of the non-fungible conference. It was called Meta Wave, and we had a bunch of DJs come and performers, and we streamed it, and we did that and projected the crypto voxels into the back of behind the DJ, and then you can go and move your avatar around, and actually was like really interesting because people would jump in front of I was streaming from my phone on Twitch, but people could jump in front of like the phone camera and they were like, oh, and then they look over, and then a few seconds later they're like, oh, on the screen.
Yeah.
So it became sort of like doubly interactive, and then you had people who were in the venue on their phone, walking through in their avatar and whatever, and I think that it's like that these sort of experiences, these sort of mirrored experiences, I think are where it's at. Not as opposed to sort of the avatar performance stuff. I mean, I think there's room for that as well. I just feel like it's really nice to get a window into another world, and in the real sense of seeing real people and seeing what's going on, and that I think is interesting. But yeah, like in the future of sort of metaverse stuff is that you don't necessarily have to be engaged in a performance the whole time. You can chat with other people who are in the space. You can go and look at other content and interact with other things in that virtual space. Like I always felt like, these metaverse parcels and virtual spaces are the next generation of websites. Like we're not going to have, these scroll and click websites with pages and so on. It's going to be immersive. You're going to go in, you're going to look and interact all in sort of one room. And I know like some of the guys like Jin and Boombox Heads and what some of the stuff that they're doing, I think that's that next level, but again, it's going to come down to bandwidth and accessibility. Right now, like people are using their phones, and I think the phone, like interacting with things in your phone in the virtual spaces is a bit challenging, and there are limitations. So
it's funny that we've gotten to that point where we talk about computing and how fast it gets, but now we all want to interact on our phone much more than we want to interact on a a lot of people don't have desktops. A lot of people don't even have laptops. They've got the phone, and if they can't do it on the phone, it's like that doesn't exist then.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think a lot of what people are catering to now are like computers, and that's because of who the community is. Like these are people who generally work on their computer for things rather than being on their phone all the time. And I think that sometimes they forget that the majority of the world are just using their phones.
They've already transitioned in their brain. They're like, nah, we moved on to phones. I don't care what you got in that computer. I got this huge, computer with all this stuff. It doesn't matter. I want it right here. I want it right here in this little thing. I want it to work. That's where they're at. And we got to cater to that. If you want to have, talking about onboarding, you want to onboard somebody. You really got to give them what's convenient to them and what they're used to. a
Yeah,
version
it's
of what they're
true.
used to, or
And,
whatever.
yeah, like I experience this a lot with the work I'm doing with the DAOs and onboarding artists and musicians, and a lot of people, like we're talking about like people from Africa and Southeast Asia and South America, and they don't necessarily they have a phone. Everybody has a smartphone.
Exactly.
Nah, everybody has a computer.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you have to guide people through, and it's got to be easy for them to do on their computer, and there's I think their phones. So it's important to keep that in mind. I think optimizing for mobile is like that's kind of the future. And then beyond, like I'm seeing beyond the mobile is the extension of your screen will just be a visual interface, like an overlay, like an AR glasses kind of thing, where you just pop on the glasses and boom, you get your whole screen. And then I think then we have an opportunity to kind of then have this more extensive experiences beyond the limitations of the screen.
I feel like the devs are kind of gearing up for that more than they're gearing up for a mobile experience. You see a lot more of the people on the dev side kind of like they want AR and VR, like that's what they want to develop in. It doesn't seem like they're saying, I'm trying to develop a mobile app for this blockchain thing. Like, it almost feels like when the two worlds meet, AR and VR and blockchain, those things are going to marry very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. And another one of the big challenges it also is security. Like I think with mobile phones, people tend to lose them a lot more or damage them, or something happens, and if you've got like, your wallets on there and something happens and it gets compromised, and, it's just something to consider moving forward, especially these are the conversations I always have onboarding people, is about securing your wallets and making sure that, what worst case scenarios, and just to be aware of what to do. Like what are you gonna do if you lose your phone? How are you gonna access? Wait, don't keep your privacy on your phone. This is like defeats the purpose.
I've onboarded so many people that wanted to take like a picture of it, and I'm like, no, that's just not what you do. Because the phone, it's gonna have that picture in there somewhere. Like, just don't do that. Write it down. Put it in, where you like your birth certificate or whatever it is. It's something that you don't want stolen. Like you really got to treat it in that way, like a treasure, a treasure map or something.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So as far as with DAO Records now, like what are we looking to do now? You have a couple artists that are working. I mean, obviously you do, but is the next move like some sort of like new drop? Do you have something going on right in this second you talk about?
Yes. So we actually started building. I don't like the word platform, but we created a new minting system. It's called PhonoRoot. It's actually like an extension of what I was talking about earlier about the standardization. And the cool thing about this is like the way that we envisioned it. And shout out to the homie Star Paws, who planted this idea in my head and was like, do it. So it's like you mint a one NFT, and then the Gen 0 is held in the vault, in the smart contract, in the minter's wallet. And then you have the first generation that's created, and then that first generation can be purchased. And once it's purchased, it creates two new children, and that become Gen 2. So each time an NFT is purchased, two new ones are created, and then it goes down from a generational thing where it's generation 1 is 1 NFT, 2 is 2 more, 3 is 4 more, 4 is 8 more. So you kind of like have these generations of NFTs that are being created, and we're eventually going to work in sort of a royalty structure into that, because DAO Records being a DAO, I think it's important that any artists that we're working with, a percentage goes back to the DAO, and then that way we can lock value into the DAO. We can use these funds to then create grant programs for the artists to use and access later on. So this is sort of like just a general percentage royalty that goes off first sale to DAO Records. And then through that, we'll have another royalty structure built in. So people who purchase later generations, a percentage of royalty gets fed back up the royalty chain to the holders of earlier generations. So it's sort of an incentive to get that early generation.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, just because you could have like, it's kind of like I mean, it's a ledger literally of how your sales have done, how quickly you've got to generation, let's say 8, generation 20, whatever. If you don't even have to say I sold this many records. You're like, I've got 30 generations. Yeah, exactly. And you have a real good picture of how that's doing.
Yeah. And so how we've decided to launch this is by doing what we've done. Like previously we did the pop-up season 1, season 2. It's like basically a metaverse music NFT event series that happens, and we're on week 5 coming up this week for Sound Splash is what we're calling it. It's on the rooftop of the Dow Records HQ in Crypto Voxels, and we're also using Reality Chain's 2D Verse, which is near. You can access it through near wallets, and we're using near for all this. Basically, building this out because I found like in terms of the ability to keep costs down for buyers, as well as to do sort of multiple wallet splits. It works very easily. And it's pretty quick, and so with that, we're doing this 12-week event series. Started on 4th of May, it goes all the way till the end of July, featuring 12 artists or 12 acts from around the world. We started with Major 1, with featuring like Janine and Kenzie and ALX and JCB, and representing kind of like Malaysia, Singapore. And then week 2, we had Deduku from Nigeria. Week 3, we featured Mantravine, which is this awesome act from Singapore. Week 4 was Komachi and Mecha Godzilla, so it's a collaboration between a Brooklyn producer and a female Japanese rapper. And then, of course, this week is myself and DJ Lethal Skills with a track called Spacesuit Apocalypse. And then so we have basically our June schedule is up. We've got artists from around the world participating. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got a couple of artists from Trinidad and Tobago and other producers based in Brazil. This is like a reggae drop. The homie Blue Fire and Jawise and like it's a lot of cool stuff we're doing. This is really just to kind of gear up and get our platform ready. We do like an exclusive drop page. We call it a splash page. It's just like a one pager. And then that's where you can go and buy the drop NFT. And then there's a little drop down menu to go and select which week that you want to go to purchase the NFTs. So we're trying to make it very exclusive. Ultimately, like the main concept is like to be like the Wix and iTunes. Combine Wix and iTunes, and so you're like, you can create a customizable front end page for your drop, and then you can use the minting system in the back. It's sort of like your NFT distribution, and then sort of have a sliding scale in terms of price and royalty. So you can price low, and then your royalty is high, or you can price high and your royalty is low. So I have this sort of sliding scale for price, but generally within a realm that makes it easy to onboard people and get people into the ecosystem and kind of have that sort of general standardization. Like, iTunes, they do like, download the MP3 for 99 cents or $1.29 or whatever, it's premium and whatever. So it's kind of like that.
That's great. I mean, I feel like you're always in the forefront of this stuff. You're always super international with it, man. You're like, this guy's from Japan, this guy's from Trinidad and Tobago. That's what we need, because everybody needs to be introduced to this stuff, and through music you can introduce people on a crazy scale. You got an artist from Africa, you're introducing that person to the artist from Japan just by having them on the same general platform. So I think that's huge for the for the general industry. And I've always been a kind of a big fan of what you do, because I'm watching from over here. I'm not always checking in with you, but I am watching from over here, and I'm like, man, this guy is always working, always on something. Always on something brand new, something you never heard of. And I think that's big. I think that's big for the community in general, the international music community. It's great, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Franky. Appreciate that, man.
Now, in terms of just how NFTs have affected your life. Like, first of all, it
Mhm.
sounds like it's all consuming. I might be able to answer that, answer that my own self, you know. But like little things, like not the money, but like just the how everything has gone. What is the huge change for you as far as your regular life?
Well, it's I think just the global the, the whole like change globally with what's been happening in the post pandemic stuff, right, is really kind of pushed a lot of people to pivot and move sort of into online ventures. And this has really given a boost to the whole Web3 ecosystem, right? And I found like previously I've been doing mostly events, and that's like on ground physical locational events, right? And then now it's kind of this pivot into the metaverse and doing similar things, but just using a different location, a different space. And then now it's kind of like getting back to like bridging the two again. Like real world, I think is like people overlook it sometimes because of the impact of the pandemic, but the real world is really what's going to bring everybody more into this space, because it's easier to learn. I think having people around you be participating physically in things is it's easier for us to kind of build community that way and focus also on local communities. So I think it's really changed, like in my life, and just in terms of how I think about delivering content, and how we can use NFTs to tell stories and hold value in those stories, and be able to trade them and move them around and collect them. And I've been in the process of writing a book for the past, I don't know, 10 years or so, and I haven't really gotten that far. But like I think now that we've come into this NFTs phase, I'm like, my book is going to be in NFTs.
I
I'm
was
gonna have
just
a
about to
physical
say,
book
like,
with
at
like
what
QR
chapter do
codes.
you just change over? Like, like you started writing this book 10 years ago, but now, like in chapter 5, it just goes, wow, it goes.
Well, it's a bit of an autobiography, so it's just stories of my life, and different things that have kind of like led me to where I am today. And not to say that it's interesting for anybody, but it's a way for me to kind of keep a record, of my life and my history. And if people are interested in it, then so be it. But if not, then I have that record. And with blockchain and NFTs, that's a way for me to kind of permanently keep that, and have it exist beyond my times on this earth. So that I think is one thing. Another thing as well is just like looking at, like I think NFTs currently, we're looking at them like they're like it's just like a rudimentary, it's like a square wheel. You know what I mean? Like we're like, it turns, but it's kind of clunky.
Yep.
But
Yep.
like we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what NFTs are going to be. And I feel like they're going to be so ubiquitous that they're going to just interact with each other doing things without us even realizing it in the background, like talking to each other, and programming multiple NFTs to interact. And
What
I
I was
think
thinking?
that's,
I
we're
was
going to
like,
get to
I
some
feel like
exciting
at
shit.
some point we're gonna get to a point where it's not called an NFT no more. I'm not sure what they're gonna call it, but you get the feeling that we're not gonna be calling it like NFTs for the whole time. I feel like
Yeah.
there's gonna be a better way to phrase it, especially when you start to have ones of all different creed and culture. House deeds and marriage licenses. You're not gonna call that the
Yeah.
same thing you would call a music. I feel like
Yeah.
you have gonna have to have a different terminology. But in the beginning, it's all just
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. It's yeah, I guess streaming, like in a way, like streaming was that, streaming music. It was MP3s, playing an MP3 on your Winamp or something, right? Like it was playlists. Yeah, I think eventually maybe it'll just go back to be called music.
That's a good point, man.
I don't know. It's hard to say.
Man.
I'm trying to think of some witty terminology in my mind right now, but
Oh,
it's not
we're not gonna think it up. It's
get
gonna be
there.
like it's a 12-year-old
Yeah,
somewhere is gonna think it up.
exactly. Yeah,
It's not for us to do.
yeah. We
um,
just create the foundation for the next generation.
for sure, for sure. Now, I gotta ask you this, and I don't know. I think I heard you talk about this, but I just want to undocument. Um, when I met you, you were Vandal, and today you're now Rare
Mhm.
Vandal. How do
Mhm.
we get there?
That's sort of, I guess, the NFT effect, but it's a combination of things because I've felt like I've never been an artist with like major numbers on like streaming or sales and stuff. I've always kind of been quite niche
Mm-hmm.
in what I do and sort of my community and fan base. And I've never really been into kind of so much on the technology side when it comes to music, like whether that's streaming or using social media to promote your stuff, or like I would just like I just do me, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So when my music, like I had my albums up on Spotify and the streaming services, and as I started to get more and more down the NFT rabbit hole, um, I decided I wanted to rarefy all of my music. So I removed my albums off of streaming services, and I decided that I wanted to kind of re-up these albums on NFTs as NFTs. I still haven't done all of them yet.
Yeah.
I also am using some of the the blockchain music streaming platforms. Like, some stuff is on Audius, other stuff is on Emanate. I haven't fully populated my back catalog yet, but I just kind of wanted to just remove everything, and I think that that adds value also to the people who have some of my actual CDs and like physical music.
Yeah.
Is that now you can't listen to it on the streaming services anymore. So if you want to listen to it, you got to find it.
Right.
And I've always kind of been, coming from the old school, like early '90s hip hop, is like you dig for shit. Like you go to the record store, you're gonna go digging for records. You're gonna like find things, and to me, that's what NFTs is like, bringing back this whole idea of digging and discovering music. Like you're just music discovery is come back to like actual, like it takes effort on behalf of the person to go and like find the music, as opposed to being fed to you through an algorithm on a Spotify, and you're not really thinking, you're not really interacting with, you're not engaging with the music. It's just kind of in the background playing.
It's changed in that regard is like the slang words, the way people talk. People use the same slang words across different parts of the world, and whatever. If you speak in the same language, a lot of times you can kind of get the same verbiage just because you're being fed it, a little bit. In the time of you're talking about, kind of music discovery, everyone used different slang words from block to block. It wasn't even about like state or none of that. Like you'd be like, we over here might talk differently from them over there. Behind a lot of that was behind music discovery. The way you listen to music was then the way you created your new slang words that you kind of came up with. But now with everything kind of being connected, it's like it's great in some levels, but there's this element of some of the creativity seems to be getting taken away from just general culture. Because everybody has the same.
Yeah.
It's like I heard that. Yeah, I heard that too. And then everybody, and you wonder if some of the element of creativity and the way people speak and all that stuff is kind of going away because you're just getting fed the same information.
Yeah, the commercialization, I think, of culture is kind of destroying it or degrading it a bit. I think we see that, and what I noticed, like, okay, so the other night here in KL, I had sort of a little reunion party my friend threw for me. He's a millennial, but he's one of those dudes who, under the tutelage of myself and a few other people, he knows his shit, like all, like in terms of hip hop and his selections and musically. He started DJing, so he was playing like a lot of old school joints, but there was a crowd of younger people who, were kind of rejecting this, like the popular commercial elements of like going out or going to like a club or going to a venue, where they would rather go to the small spot and hear 90s hip hop without even knowing the artist, even just kind of discovering. I saw a few Shazamings going on in the crowd, like, what's this joint,
Yeah, I've heard DJs talking about this, that they are having better luck now playing old school sets as opposed to just giving them what they have on their Spotify, because it's already on their Spotify,
Mm-hmm.
And so it's you don't now these kids in a place, they hear something different and like, wow, I never looked. Not that it's not on Spotify, it's just they haven't looked to listen to that. And then it's there, and they're like, "Wow, maybe they check it out or whatever." I gave my brother, I gave him like a little flash drive. I have a 16-year-old brother. I gave him a little flash drive. I was like, "This is all the hip hop, like not all of it, but like a lot of my favorite songs." I just gave him, that's it. Just study that.
Yeah, yeah, man. The new the USB mixtapes, because you got like the whole like massive collections.
Yeah, it's crazy. I got like a crazy playlist of just like my, when I was DJing, I one day I just sat down, I was like, I'm gonna just put together my favorite songs on them, so I just did that one time, and I just copy pasted that and sent it to him,
Yeah. So like, I feel like the next generation, I think, and maybe not the majority of people, but you don't need the majority. I think that's kind of like how the cycle always works. Is you have sort of the underground, which are like the tastemakers, the innovators, the people who kind of push the boundaries and then start to build like a sort of a cult following, and it gradually grows and gets bigger, and they get noticed because they're different. Mm-hmm. And then they become propelled into sort of the spotlight, and then you have that underground mainstream kind of cycle. And this next cycle, I think, is coming around, and I think NFTs are going to play a pivotal role in this, because there are going to be people who start to innovate using NFTs within their own circles, and like talking about the youth, right? The next generation, they're going to come and grasp it, and then you're going to have these movements that are created around like this small like NFT culture, and it's not necessarily music. It's like a mixture of things. It's merch, it's this, it's fashion, it's and then you have metaverse play, and you have physical things. And this is going to be sort of, I think, that next underground movement that's really more of a lifestyle thing, like hip hop. Like, I think hip hop and NFTs and hip hop and blockchain are such a like, it fits so perfectly.
Definitely.
A lot
punk
of it,
rock, those days when it was just like so niche and so on its own level, like early punk rock days. These guys are like selling tapes and the T-shirts and everything that they were doing is kind of like of this kind of same wave. Everything was more rare. During GG Allen's run, it's not like everybody knew about GG Allen. I never knew about it until I was an adult, because I was into hip hop.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna get to that phase. I think once we move away from this sort of financial incentive around NFTs and this sort of flipping and looking at NFTs as sort of an investment asset and not really necessarily valuing them. I know that's sort of a generalization out there, but there are people who do collect and value their NFTs as, rather than looking at making a profit. But I think when you eliminate sort of that element, and now that we're in bear market territory, I think we're going to find a lot of people leave, and you're going to have sort of more of the quality people come in, because they're not coming in for the money, they're coming in to do shit.
Yeah, exactly. To use the technology, give it a utility. And because you gotta have the vision to see where it's going. If you're around during the hard times, when you're around during the hard times, you're really somebody who's dedicated to making this thing work or seeing it through to the end. And that's why I feel like that's why I'm still here. Well, I've been here since the beginning, not the beginning, but when it was bad when I got in, it wasn't like a great market for NFTs, so
yeah.
Well, man, I really appreciate you giving me your time, my man. Crazy 12-hour difference. I would maybe one day I'll try to make it out to your side of the world, man. Especially
Yeah,
in
yeah,
Tokyo,
yeah.
man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Sheesh.
Once things open up for like the tourists, they're starting to slowly open up now. Probably by July, I would imagine that things are going to be fully open up for tourism. So, you know, it's come through Tokyo, yeah.
Yeah, it
Do some
sounds
metaverse
it
shit.
sounds like a blast. Yeah, exactly. All right, man.
Yeah.
Well, I will definitely be in touch like always. Like I said, I really appreciate you doing this for me. Man. And anything else you wanted to kind of give before we go?
Yeah, just check out what we're doing, records.io, records.org. Those are the two spots. We're still like developing like the core of the technology that we're using to move forward into the private beta phase. We're going to be doing a lot more collaborations with labels and projects and various artists moving forward globally in the next phase of things, and then just continuing to develop and innovate the various pieces of the ecosystem. I think that we can add benefit to what's happening out there in the NFT world and beyond. But thanks, Frankie. Appreciate you
Man,
and everybody
thank you.
out there watching this. Much love.
Appreciate you, man. Much love. I'll talk soon. Red Vandal, everybody.
All right. Word.